All right, let's break down the elements of the Copa claim against Dr. Wright regarding the identity of Satoshi Nakamoto. There's a lot of chatter on Twitter I'm seeing about people, up in arms about really what's going on in this long brief. So let me just give my perspective from a non-lawyer's point of view. Trial scheduled in January, biggest financial trial of our time, arguably. So basically, a summary of it. There's a document. It's called the Amended Particulars of a Claim and scheduled in a legal dispute between Copa, Crypto Open Patent Alliance, and Dr. Craig Wright regarding authorship and copyright of the Bitcoin white paper. Copa alleges that Wright falsely claims to be Satoshi Nakamoto. They supply a list of a bunch of documents disclosed supposedly by Wright, that Copa alleges to have been forged or tampered with to support his claim to be Satoshi. These alleged forged documents include purported emails, research papers, academic documents, accounting records, Bitcoin software files, and Copa claims them to be backdated. Copa claims that there's a schedule that demonstrates a pattern of document tampering by Wright, and it seeks declarations that he's not the author of the white paper or the copyright owner of the white paper. So Copa basically alleges extensive forgery and backdating of the documents. Now, let's just go over the standards of what's required, okay, and understanding evidence a little bit, because anybody can say anything on a piece of paper. Those are called allegations. They're unproven allegations. Based upon the allegations in the complaint by Copa, the key elements of fraud that would need to be proven are: one, false representation. That's the first element. So the complaint alleges that Wright made false representation that he is Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin. All right, so that's the first element. Second element, knowledge of falsity. Wright had to have had knowledge of these statements being false. So the complaint alleges Wright knew that he was not Satoshi Nakamoto, and he made these representations. Number three, intent to deceive. The complaint alleges that Wright made these false representations with the intent to deceive others, and claim ownership of the Bitcoin intellectual property. Number four is reliance. The complaint alleges that the cryptocurrency community as a whole and the Copa members relied on Dr. Wright's representations that he was Satoshi. And then last is damages. The complaint alleges that Dr. Wright's false representations, if unchallenged, that's the key, could improperly entitle him to enforce intellectual property rights over Bitcoin to the detriment of Copa and its members. The complaint seeks declaratory judgment where the court would declare as a matter of law that Dr. Wright is not Satoshi Nakamoto or the author of the white paper. Now, fraud is a really high standard to prove. So in order to prove these allegations, plaintiff, Copa in this case, on this side, they have to show that, number one, the false representation. They would need to prove evidence that Wright made definitive statements claiming he was Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin. And this could include public statements, media interviews, legal assertions where he expressly states he's Satoshi. Okay? They'd have to, first of all, prove that he's made that statement. Number two, they'd have to prove that he knew that it was false. Copa would need to provide evidence, basically, to show that he was not truly Satoshi Nakamoto when he was making these representations. This could include records like communications, testimony showing Wright knew he did not actually author the white paper. Number three, they have to show the intent to deceive. So Copa would need to demonstrate through evidence, experts, that Dr. Wright falsely made false claims with the intent to deceive others, such as the claims of ownership to the Bitcoin IP. So this could support the records of Dr. Wright enforcing the claim of intellectual property rights regarding Bitcoin. And then they'd have to also prove, number four, reliance, that other people in the community, including Copa, relied on these statements allegedly false, believing that Dr. Wright was Satoshi. And this could include evidence but they accepted his claims as true and treated him as the creator of Bitcoin. That was what they'd have to show. And lastly, damages. They'd need to establish that the damages caused by Wright's alleged false claims regarding the Bitcoin IP ownership and threats to enforce rights. This can include evidence of specific harm. Now, so Copa would need to provide forensic evidence by experts. So expert forensic evidence that documents were in fact falsified and backdated. Testimony on Wright's behavior and his credibility could also support the fraud claims. So by presenting evidence like this, basically on each element, the Copa could establish that Wright, he's liable for the fraud and is not Satoshi Nakamoto. Now, that may sound like no big deal. Okay, that's going to be just a lot of words on paper. This is a very high standard. First of all, in order to show that, first of all, these documents, because they've got a list of documents here, which is a mile long. It's not a mile long. It's about 40 to 50 sets of documents and files. That's just an estimate. And it's attached to this 125-page amended complaint. With that, just because there's words on paper, experts still have to come forward and validate these to get them into evidence. Somebody has to authenticate them. So let's just talk about authenticating evidence, for example. In California, and it should be, I would presume it's universal, that evidence has to be authenticated, meaning that somebody has to swear that evidence is truly bona fide. It actually is what it is. Now, let's say that I don't know where the source of all this evidence comes from, but let's say they're saying that they've got a computer file from somewhere. Well, somebody still has to come forward and build the chain and say, like, this guy pulled the file, he wrote the file, it went to this place. They have to have a chain of custody of where this file went. It becomes extremely difficult to get something in over objections at that point, when you may have a lot of hearsay files and evidence that is totally unable to be authenticated. Even if arguendo that it was true, even let's say if it was believably true, not to say that it is, it still has to come in and be authenticated. So getting this evidence in is not going to be, I would say, is not going to be no easy task. This is going to be a challenge, because most likely Wright's lawyers are going to object to every single bit of this evidence coming in. All right, so just in summary, there is extremely high standard on evidence. And just because one side here has made claims, they've still got to meet the 5 particular elements of a fraud claim. Again, 1, false representation, knowledge of falsity, intent to deceive, reliance, damage, how they were damaged. All of these things have to be brought in. And just because it says it on a word on a piece of paper doesn't make it true or even necessarily remotely admissible, meaning that the court can even consider it. So it's an extremely high standard. It'll be a fascinating battle to see what comes in and what doesn't come in. However, let's not underestimate the impact of the clearly established law in Kleiman v. Wright, which just came out this last month. So, which I made a video about as well. Here recently going through it. The impact of that is monumental. It's going to be hard for the other side or the court to overlook that. This is Gavin, Mehl. Tomorrow I got to make a submission to the CoinGeek to go out and do a speech out there, or not a speech, but maybe host a group. I have a couple of ideas on that. So I should make another video about that tomorrow and discuss some ideas on what to present the London Blockchain Convention. This is great, man. Exciting. Great day. Gavin, Mehl coming at you. About to start a big training session right now at 5 o'clock Pacific, California time. Here we go. November 2nd. It's a great day. Until next time.